body was found in Nancy Creek? Wait, was it decomposed? Oh, I have to make a phone call right now.
Our problem is that one student here at Westminster Anonymous said fish were dying in the small pond. This pond was made by a small stream from Nancy Creek that over time had cooled and created it. When the pond was stopped, the fish died quickly. Why was this happening? What can we do to stop it? This was what we were trying to find.
So our hypothesis is that when fish are placed in a tank full of Nancy Creek water, will die because of the overwhelming pollution. If they do die, then I will confirm our hypothesis and possibly make it into a theory. This could then be something that the school could act upon and clean up the river. We will also be testing feeder with guppies within a fish tank full of all three of these: water, distilled water, and also the water from Nancy Creek. Our constants will be the food and the breed of fish used, and our variables will be the different type of water that is used in each fish tank.
For our background research, we went on the USGS website and used the stream data for Nancy Creek. We figured out that the pH level of Nancy Creek is about 6.6, which is slightly acidic, but well within the range of 6.5 to 8. It's 17.1 degrees Celsius in the springtime, and there's about 8.1 dissolved milliliters of oxygen per liter of water. The specific conductivity is 0.124375. The statistics for tap water are very similar. The pH level is 7, but for when it's sitting out, it can go all the way down to 6, like our water did. It can be anywhere from 1 to 36 degrees Celsius, and has about 8 dissolved milliliters of oxygen per liter of water. However, its specific conductivity is 0.005 to 0.05, which is much lower than Nancy Creek. What this means is that there are many dissolved sulfate and nitrate ions in the Nancy Creek water.
Day 1, all three fish in all three tanks behaved very similarly. They were active and swam at the surface. They also responded to food immediately. On day 2, one fish in the tap water died. This may have been due to the tap water, or it may have been due to the fish just being sick. On day 7, after a long hiatus, another fish in the tap water died. It was shredded by the filter. The one left responded well to food. In the distilled tank, another fish died in the filter, and the two alive were at the bottom, and they were not very active. They didn't respond to food. In the Nancy Creek tank, they were active and they swam at the top. They also responded to food. All three were alive. On day 8, all of the fish in the tap water were dead. We heard that this was due to the final fish dying in the filter. In the distilled tank, 2 fish remained alive, and they ate food and swam. In Nancy Creek, one of the fish was dead.
Here are steps for our experiment. First, we need to get our materials, which are fish, 3 tanks, fish food, 3 filters, tap water, distilled water, and Nancy Creek water. Once we have our materials, we should fill 1 tank with tap water, 1 with distilled, and 1 with Nancy Creek water. We need to make sure each tank has the same amount of water. Then we place an equal amount of fish in each tank. If there are any fish remaining, we'll put them in a tank of our choice. Fourth, we'll put a filter in each tank and turn them on. Next, we have to feed each tank 2 flakes of fish food every day. We should make observations like how many fish died, their activity, if they respond to food, etc. And finally, we need to record our data.
Here's our first graph. It is about the fish dead over time in the first trial. So on day 1, nothing really happened. Now on day 2, we have 1 fish dying in tap water. We're not quite sure if it was because it was either sick or because it got caught in the filter. But anyways, so on the 3rd day, there's the same amount of fish dead in the tap water. And that went on until the 6th day, when 1 fish in the distilled water became sick. And by the 7th day, that 1 fish in the distilled water died, and one more fish died in tap water. But now on the 8th day of our first trial, we had one fish die in the Nancy Creek water, which was quite unexpected, and we had one more fish die in the tap water. At that point in time, we have one fish dead in the creek water, one fish dead in the distilled water, and 3 fish dead in the tap water. One fish we had found out died because it was sick, but the other 2 fish, and same with these other fish, they died because they got caught in the filter, and this is one of the faults of our experiment. And this is about the fish dead over time in our second trial. Now, as you can see, by day 1, there were 0 fish dead. On the second day, which is right here, you can see that less than 1 fish died in the creek water. We had more than 1 fish die in the tap water, going on 2. And then we had 5 fish die in the distilled water. By the 3rd day, that 5 had turned into 10 in the distilled water. That less than 2 had turned into 3 in the tap water. And that less than 1 had turned basically into 1. Now on the 4th day, as you can see, we have 2 fish dead for the creek water, so that's 1 more than before, and we had 6 dead in the tap water. That was 3 more than before, so basically that number of fish doubled. Now, it stayed the same in the distilled water, because by that time we had realized that the filter was the main problem, and that we had turned it off. 3rd and final graph. It is about the pH levels over time, specifically between the 1st and the 7th days. The blue columns are going to be the 1st day, and the red columns are going to be the 7th day. So, 1 second. So, in our first tank, we had distilled water. Okay, so it started out as 7, which is not toxic at all. The higher the pH level, the less toxic it is to animals, including humans. So, it went from day 1 as a 7 to day 7 as a 5.8 right here. That is a pretty large change for just sitting out in the air. Now, our second tank had creek water, which was from Nancy Creek River, and we had been experimenting. 6.6 was the starting on day 1, and 6.5 was the ending. That's not too much of a change for being out about a week, but it's still a small change in the toxicity. But on the 3rd tank, we had tap water. Now, it went from a 6.8 to a 6. That's not too much of a change, but that's more than we would like to see. Now, our control was supposed to be distilled water, and that was supposed to be the safest. But both distilled water and tap water had the most deaths in the fish. So we conclude that if you're going to have a fish tank, that you should probably fill it with Nancy Creek water. And that ends our experiment.